छुटे ना छुटे मुझसे रंग तेरा डोलना एक तेरे बाजू दूजा मेरा कोई मोल ना बोलना माही बोलना बोलना माही बोलना.
It's so cold now. I'm one of those person who gets cold fast. So I used to work in the city.
Let me just make sure.
Okay. Yeah. On 5th and 42nd. So I used to have to take the train. But now that I'm working from home, I don't technically have to do that anymore.
We don't talk anymore like we used to do. We don't love anymore. What was all before? We don't talk anymore like we used to do. रंग बरख के पानी दा रंग बरख के अखियाँ जो अंजूर उड़ती अखियाँ जो अंजूर उड़ती.
You know, in Richmond Hill, as we're driving around today, you'll see so many homes with Jendi flags, and it's literally we call it little Guyana. But the truth be told, you know, Richmond Hill, Queens is really a very diverse community. A community that not only have Indo-Caribbeans, not only have Muslims, Hindu, Christians, we have Sikhs, we have so many various different culture and diversity within this community. So even though oftentimes we say Little Guyana, but really it's a vast community of people that lives here with multicultural diaspora. So my name is Mohamed Afzal Amin, also known as International Dancer Zaman and Sundari, the Indian goddess. I'm an Indo-Caribbean individual. I am Guyanese. I am gay. I'm a drag queen. I'm a survivor of hate violence. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. But most importantly, I am Muslim. And I'm human. As much as my work drives Richmond Hill, Queens, and a lot of the work comes from this community, I don't live in Richmond Hill. I live in Far Rockaway, Queens. And everyone always thinks that I live in Richmond Hill, but it's because I'm here so often, and a lot of my people are here. A lot of our Caribbean people is here in Richmond Hill, and a lot of my work is done in Richmond Hill. Volunteerism, teaching, from performing at the various different temples within Richmond Hill that you're probably going to see where we're coming up right here. Where is this temple? Right here. There's a temple on the right. And you know, we're gonna go down Lefferts Boulevard, and you'll see Lefferts. Lefferts is that opening area from the gates of everywhere to Richmond Hill. It's a merge spot that everyone knows. This train station we're coming up on the left, it's a really historic area because so many of us have traveled, have climbed these steps. Whether we came from JFK Airport, taking the train, coming to and settling here in Richmond Hill, you find a sense of home, belonging, not only for the heterosexual community, but our LGBTQ community as well. We feel at home. Hey, how are you? Good. We feel that in this area is where we're more comfortable. We're most comfortable. Every month, once a month, we would normally have group support service for LGBTQ family members and the wider community at this library, the Lefferts branch in Queens. And I'll tell you, it has changed so many lives. So many parents now are able to speak more openly with their kids, understand their sexuality and who they are, who they love, and be able to respect them more. So it's really important work that's been happening.
I left Guyana at the age of 10 years old, migrating to the US with my 4 siblings and my 2 parents. Growing up in Guyana, I remember it's, every morning you wake up, it's family time, it's making sure you shower, get dressed, you go to the backyard, back down. In Guyana we call it back down, or pasture. And you're taking the cows out, the sheep, the goats, the chickens. We had all of that back home. And that's like your exercise early morning, right? Our family had and continue, and as we continue here in New York as well, family traditions, cultural traditions. Especially, I remember during the weekends, we would always go to the masjid. I remember my dad would tow my brother and I on his bike down Canal number 2, and he would bring us to the masjid where we would spend the weekends and praying and learning, developing our Islamic background. And migrating here to the US was challenging, very challenging. Coming here not knowing what to expect, not knowing how many family members will embrace us and welcoming us. And then coming here in the midst of snow season in 1996, it was one of the biggest snow seasons in New York. I remember getting off the plane, first time getting off the plane, dressed in white shoes. I remember getting dressed in white shoes and suits. And the first thing I know, I fell on the floor, fell on ice. And that was my first experience here in New York City, now residing in Queens, New York. We've overcome a lot of struggles, especially language barriers, cultural barriers, Indo-Caribbean barriers, sexuality barriers that we've had to overcome. And I remember, being teased, being bullied and teased at a young age, not only in the public school systems, but even by family members, not having the proper clothing, or not having, we call name brand clothing. When you move from a country to a new country, oftentimes you don't have money. You don't have, you're coming with a dialect, Guyanese dialect, that oftentimes the American community does not accept, they're not aware of. They're not aware of our slang. And all of this we needed to learn. We needed to break it. We needed to adapt to our community, to our society. And, that came with family support. It came with a lot of family support, and I'm so thankful for that.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back a bit, growing up in Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
At what age could you remember at what age you realized that you weren't like the other boys, and you were a little different?
Growing up in Guyana, I knew I was different, and one experience that shaped this was at a very young age, at the between the age of 8 and 9, I was raped by one of my uncles. And that experience scarred my life. It didn't create who I am today. It didn't make me gay. It didn't make me part of the LGBTQ community. But however, it was an experience that taught me a lot, taught me struggles, it taught me hardship, it taught me how to overcome throughout that period, and how to deal with these kind of trauma. Even today, I'm still oftentimes taken back and reflect by all those trauma. Growing up in Guyana, it's a hard life for LGBTQ individuals. It's very difficult. The buggery law still exists. At the time, at 9, 8 years old, I never knew about this law. I only learned about it here in the US. I didn't learn about it in textbooks in our school system here in the US. Through struggles, through immigration, through hardship, through my own struggles here, I was able to learn all of this. And I wouldn't say that I knew that I was gay back home. I knew I loved different things. I knew I loved dance. I knew I loved fashion. Back home, I didn't have an attraction for men because I was such a young age, or even boys. But I knew that I was different. I knew that there were something special about me. And today we get to realize that. Sundari, the Indian goddess. In 2012, I was cast as a dancer for Khichdi. And for those of us who knows Khichdi, it's a whole melting pot mixture of various different food, right? As an artist, ever since I was young, I've always learned everything I need to learn. To learn and trained not only as a male dancer, but also as a female dancer. And in 2012, this female side was created and developed more. I was asked to dress as a female for a particular character, and never knew what I would look like. I've never put on so much makeup in my entire life to transform as a female. But thankfully, my drag sister, Detox Bustier, who is a Jamaican drag queen here in New York, did my transformation for the first time. And boy, it was different. It was sure different. I was a complete whole new different person, but underneath, still a man, still me. On the outer look, on the outer shell, I was a whole woman. Whole woman. When I first became Sundari, I didn't know if I was going to continue as Sundari. I thought it was the one-time thing only. But then I realized there's a need for it. There's a need for her in our community to create this change. There's a platform that Zaman and Sundari have in the community that I honestly feel that have been supported by our community because of the previous years of work, real relationships that have been built, respect that have been built through the years. But most importantly, authenticity in being who I am. So when I think of international dancer Zaman, Sundari the Indian goddess, and me, without me, both of these characters wouldn't exist.
Mohamed Afzal Amin was born in Montrose on the east coast of Demerara, but he actually grew up in Canal No. 2 on the west bank of Demerara. He is the second of 4 children born to Mohamed and Walima Amin. He's the first openly gay Indo-Caribbean dancer in New York City and also the first Indo-Caribbean drag-centric activist to march in the Pagua Parade and to perform with Cyndi Lauper at the 2019 World Pride held here in New York City. And more than that, he's also the first drag queen to perform at the United Madrasi Association Parade held in New York, actually embodying Mahakali. His very energetic passion for dancing and theater started at a very young age while he was attending the Far Rockaway High School in Queens. He would later pursue this passion for the art form by studying and mastering various dance forms at the Gungaroos Dance Academy, where he became a trained Kathak, Orisi, Bollywood, Bhangra, and Chutney dancer. He also has a background in information technology from the Briarcliff College on Long Island. Now 35 years of age, Mohamed teaches dance at the Figure Studio in Queens and choreographs all his performances. Quite an accomplished dancer, yes, oh yes, whose performances are often described as so graceful as if dancing on air. He is the recipient of the Golden Arrowhead Award of Achievement with Distinction by the Guyana Tri-State Alliance and is the holder of countless other awards and recognitions, including from Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams and Senator Roxanne Persaud.
Performing has always been a dream, and I feel like I'm living that dream. And I think that dream has so much more potential. That dream is so wide and magical. It's amazing to see myself today living that and know that there's so much more to give and to develop and learn. I started dancing as Zaman at a young age. I saw my dad dancing at Batam house parties in Guyana. You know, usually we were growing up back home, we were brought up where, you know, we weren't allowed to be in adult company in party settings while they're drinking and that kind of stuff and dance, right? But I saw my uncles, I saw my dad. My dad has a really quick feet. He has a very quick feet. And sometimes people would say, You know, Zaman, sometimes when you dance, it's like you're on air. And that's how I see my dad as well when he dances. From the curling up to touching the floor and all this bottom house style of dance, right, that we knew. And I fell in love with that. I didn't go to school in Guyana to learn to dance, but I had the opportunity here in the U.S. And coming from a very strict religious Muslim background, oftentimes Muslim men don't participate in stage performances, dance-wise, or even in music. And I was blessed to have that when my parents said, yes, go ahead. I started when I was 16 years old. And I fell in love. I fell in love with the art. I fell in love with being on stage. I fell in love with the costumes, the creativity. Bringing joy to people, sharing my life story, my expressions, creating change now through dance, developing dance, showing our community that through dance you can tell stories, you can tell your personal stories, you can tell the stories of our ancestors, and you can shape the world through dance. I attended Far Rockaway High School, where I was part of the dance club, the drama club, where I had the opportunity to perform and act and dance in musical plays like The Wiz, Little Shop of Horrors, and getting in touch with the performing aspect of stage, being that vessel to create change and to showcase art in a different light. And now it's magical. And using performing arts to bridge the gap within our various communities, whether it's a South Asian community, our Indo-Caribbean community, our Afro-Caribbean community, or the community at large. I get to share the diverse, beautiful, and dynamic culture that we have with the world through dance, and uplift it. Oftentimes people always ask me, Zaman, you dress as Krishna. You dress in all these, you embrace Hinduism in your performing arts. But it's also a form of dance and expression Through dance training, we were taught. Through Kathak dancing, through Bharatanatyam, through Kuchipudi, we tell stories of the gods. We embrace them, we embody them. And through history in Hinduism, we've seen avatars of male and female gods. And we get to embrace that in today's society with transformation like Sundari, the Indian goddess, whereas a male transformed into a female. Now I get to inspire others. I get to be the voice for LGBTQ Caribbean artists as well in our community, uplifting them, giving them courage to know that you can do it too. Believe in yourself, accept yourself for who you are. I was raped by a family member. The path we take oftentimes chooses us. Sometimes it's not the path that we want to have. And that's based on your experience again. Many times here in the US, when we first migrated, I learned about bullying. I didn't know back home that I was raped until I came to the US. I didn't know that this was part of something that will be with me forever, or maybe I will never get over it. And I know there's a lot of individuals in Guyana who continuously being raped. So struggles I can list multiple struggles, even in my dance community. In dance community, one of my biggest fear is being on stage and hearing LGBTQ slurs being thrown at me from the public. And this has happened before. This has happened where I remember specifically I had just finished performing and I left the dressing room. I walked back to get something to drink and an older gentleman grabbed my butt. So an older gentleman, Indo-Caribbean, felt it was okay to grab a male bottom in public. That was a turning point for me in respecting myself. At that point, I was at least 15. I was at about 16 years old when this happened here in New York, in Queens, New York. And that was one of my learning lessons and a turning point for myself that going forward, no one will ever do that to me again. I knew I was gay at that point. I was already, I wasn't out to the public at 15, but I knew this was against my will. It's sexual harassment, and no one should ever feel that way. I vowed to myself that no one will ever do that to me ever again. You know, when it comes to various different stigmas, from hearing the words anti-man, bati boy, being called these names daily when you walk on the streets, you start living life with fear. And there's many individuals who continuously do that in our community. We continuously being attacked because we are LGBTQ, because we are part of a community that have been condemned for many, many years, not only here, but around the world. We are continuously being attacked, we're continuously being bullied, we are continuously being thrown stones of LGBTQ slurs at us all the time. And in 2013, I became a survivor of hate crime violence in New York City, in Richmond Hill, Queens. And I survived that violence, leaving myself with a 7-inch laceration. I was hospitalized. And the support from my siblings, my brother, my 2 sisters, and the community drove support. They drove a rally, it drove change. It created the conversation, it started the conversation of equality, which founded the Caribbean Equality Project in 2015. And to this day, we have created so many change. And I'm a proud volunteer of the organization. I will continue to support the organization. And my brother, Mohamed Q Amin, the founder of the organization, continuously advocate for LGBTQ rights, Caribbean LGBTQ rights, here in New York City and around the globe. Today we have change. We have a support system from the Caribbean Equality Project because of LGBTQ hate violence. In 2013, we didn't have that. The police department didn't understand Batty Boy, Auntie Man. These terms is not in their language. It's not in their dictionary. But now we get to change that. When I was left with a 7-inch laceration on my forehead, they didn't understand what I was called, the names that I was called, and how hurtful it is, and how traumatic that is. But today we get to educate people. We get to change that mindset and bring resources, vital resources, to our community. And I believe that visibility is so important. And this is why I feel using activism, using performing arts, and being visible in our community is so important. We give hope to our younger generation that they too can be proud of who they are. We give hope to our older generation that the values that they were taught when they were young are not the same values today, and those values can change. The education that they were taught needs to be changed. That mindset needs to be changed. And that change can only come by us continuously being in the community, by us continuously being visible.
So, Zaman, there are other young people who would have been through that traumatic experience that you've had in Guyana with your uncle. We want to bring closure to that for so many people looking today. What would you say to that uncle today?
Oftentimes, we hear about sexual assault privately. We don't talk about it publicly, as we don't talk about so many things we call taboo in our communities, especially when it comes to health. And sexual assault is part of our health. To my uncle, whether you have demons in you, whether you have gone through traumatic events in your own life that caused you to do what you did to me, know that I don't blame you. I don't blame you, but what I do is I respect myself more now. I've forgiven you because it's the first step in moving forward. Forgiveness. When you forgive someone, you realize the power you hold in moving forward. They no longer hold that power over you. You now hold that power in your hands. And I encourage folks to reclaim who you are. Oftentimes when you are raped when you are beaten, when you are tortured because of who you are just taken advantage of, we lose ourselves. We lose our humanity. But know that we can reclaim it. And it starts with forgiveness. You must forgive people, regardless of how much they have hurt you. We weren't born to hurt. We were born to love. And know that you can love again. Oftentimes it creates this struggle of trusting others, thinking that someone will always be out there to hurt you, to hurt me. And even with LGBTQ individuals like myself, we always feel that. That feeling will never go away. And even though you forgive, it will always be with you, as it is with me. And I know many survivors today, it is with them. Whether you are going through health issues or life experience, remember to forgive. And know it was not your fault. The most and second important part of that is know that you are not to be blamed. You are not to be blamed.
Tell me about your mom, your mother, that motherly support that she would have offered, especially your mom. I know your siblings are all there for you, but tell us about your mom and the role that she has played in all of this.
There's a great song by Sunder Popo, Your Mother's Love. And a mother's love is one that you can't explain that love. It's true, it's unapologetic. Unfortunately, it's not for many others. But my mom's love is unapologetic. She has loved myself and my siblings unconditionally, regardless of if we brought home a 50 on an exam or 100 on an exam, regardless if we had food on the table or our clothes were torn or we were being thrown hate speech or I was being in a hospital bed. Her love is unconditional. And she have always hugged us. She would always tell us she loves us. And she would be there as a support person. Regardless of whether she didn't understand what we were going through. Because she herself have never gone through this. She herself have never gone through what is having a son who is gay. What is the feeling of being taunted or being teased or not having food on the table. But her own children are going through it. And she has always been a support system for us. And I really hope and pray that God create more like her. That He creates more like her. I really wish there's more like her in this world, because I've had so many adults, teenagers, individuals in our communities who have seen the love my mom and I share, the bond we share, and they are inspired. She inspires them, and she gives me hope that one day there will be more. One day there will be more moms like her. And if we get to create change in our community by just being ourselves, by just being ourselves.
जान बची है
And honestly, that's what I have done. I have tried to be authentic as possible. Mom have taught us, regardless of what we are going through, stand strong. And one thing I always know, my dad is usually not public with us often. We don't see our dad often in public. But one of the things that have always stuck with me from a young child growing when we migrated here to the U.S. is he's a provider. He is a provider. He provides our food, home, shelter. And not many LGBTQ people have that. Whether it came with a price or not, our parents are still with us, and my parents are still with us. Unfortunately, many Caribbean LGBTQ individuals are on the streets. They're in the shelter system because their family abandoned them. And that's one of the most important reasons why I continue to share my family love. To know that they have love too. And one day their parents can hopefully change the mindset. Because we were not taught. We were not taught to hate. We weren't born with hate in our hearts. We were taught it. And if we were taught that hate, we can unlearn it.
And it is due to these struggles that Mohamed saw a need to be even more visible in society.
Throughout the last 5 years, we've had so many transgender individuals killed. And we continuously fight for them. And in our community, I was one of those persons that almost got killed. Almost got killed. And it needed to be me. And this is what brought me to making sure I became an activist. I became an activist because of this. I wanted to make sure that other individuals within our community have hope, know that they're not alone, that there are other individuals who are going through the same things that you are, and know that if I came out of it, you can too, with support.
But that visibility also comes at a price, and being courageous enough to let family members know exactly who you are.
Many times, people are not visible because they're not out. And one of the worst things you can do to someone is out them. Unfortunately for me, it was a blessing.
What do you mean by outed?
So, great question. Very good question. Anyone who is LGBTQ, whether you're gay, bisexual, trans, queer, ally, or other, oftentimes we live with fear because of acceptance from our family, acceptance of ourselves. And when I say outed or out, I mean someone else telling your story, someone else calling you gay because your family members don't know that you're gay. It's oftentimes a secret that many people keep for themselves until they're comfortable in their own skin. It's fear of not being accepted from your family. It's fear of being not accepted in the spaces of worship that you go to every Sunday. It's fear of your community not accepting you. And being outed by someone can lead someone to suicide, can lead someone to hurt themselves, can lead someone to being thrown out on the streets. So if you don't know someone's family dynamic, you are literally putting them in jeopardy, their life in jeopardy. Fortunately, for myself, that didn't happen. There was a support system. I was outed, by my first partner. And I made that into a blessing, because today I'm powerful, I'm resilient, I'm visible, and there's change. Today, there's acceptance from my siblings and my family, and which is the most important part for me.
And with the LGBTQ community facing continuous stigma, Mohamed feels this is all the more reason to remain authentic.
Over the years, I've learned authenticity is really important. Oftentimes, we hide our baggages, we hide our trauma, we hide the stigmas, we hide so many of us. So much of who we are, we suppress them. We suppress our feelings, we suppress our identities, we suppress our culture because of society. And I've broken a lot of those boundaries in my sexuality, my dress code, fashion, dance, food, family, friends, chosen family. Even in my performances, I've broken those boundaries and being authentic, in showing our community that stigma is no longer for us. We need to remove stigma from our mind. That vocabulary word needs to be removed. LGBTQ slurs needs to be removed. And the only way we can do that is being authentic, is continuously being visible, continuously being authentic in who we are, and bringing resources and education to our community.
Because of this acceptance, Mohamed has seen a greater need for Sundari, the Indian goddess, to project her message in the community.
ये निगाहें नश्तर, ये होंठ कौसर, मेरी आगोश में होश भी बेहोश होगा.
When I first transformed as Sundari, I didn't know this was going to be a path. But over the years, I've learned that drag queens have been around for generations. Many of our Indo-Caribbean and Caribbean drag queens have paved the way for Sundari to be around. We have Kama Sutra, we have Sarah Masala, we have Angelica Ali, who have been around fighting every day of their lives to be visible in our community. Today, Sundari, the Indian goddess, gets to walk on Liberty Avenue. She goes in Baigan, dressed in all her glory and all her fabulousness, dance down the streets of Little Guyana. Not only in Richmond Hill, but in Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx, Staten Island, Long Island, Manhattan, in all of the parades, and glorify our celebrations, and glorify our culture in her boldness and her courageousness and her vibrantness. From a girl from Guyana, created in New York City, Little Richmond Hill we call it, Little Guyana in Queens. Who would have thought you would have that opportunity to create this change? And she's that voice. She's that voice. Even though she's not transgender, she is a drag queen who still identifies as a male figure. Oftentimes today, people still don't recognize Sundari and Zaman as one person. And it's very important for them not to. Her vision, her courage is different. And from that point on in 2012, you know, I struggled with acceptance, even though I'm already out, even though I'm already public in the community as a gay dancer. I became the first Indo-Caribbean gay dancer in New York City. Even though with that statue, as Sundari, the Indian goddess, she still fear being taunted, being not accepted by her community. And in 2012, I secretly did it without telling my family. I asked for their advice, but I went ahead against them, not knowing what it would do, but know that it was something I've always wanted to do. And today is a whole new revolution around it. She is, I would say, fearless. Today she's broken so many boundaries for our community, not only here in the US, but internationally as well. And our culture and drag queens are now become mainstream in accepting what transformation looks like, what gender identity looks like, what gender performances can look like. Sundari, the Indian goddess, is changing that. International Dancer Zaman is changing that narrative, what that can look like in our community. And when we start in our community, we can then branch out to the wider community. And then it can become mainstream. And it could be a change in the world. So oftentimes, I look back at these development and history and look back at our history and how we can change and develop ourselves. And performing arts for me have been the core of this change. Dancing, using various different creativity and art to showcase that. Because oftentimes, how do you tell someone without even hurting yourself that you were raped? How do you go about telling someone that you was left with a 7-inch laceration on your forehead just because you're gay? We can't. Until you can accept what happened and know that it wasn't my fault. Until we can accept that and know that we weren't at fault and forgive, then we can move forward. And I'll tell you, every day I wake up, it's a blessing because I get to do that every day. I get to do that with a support system every day. And you can too.
And although so much work is being done in the community with support from many community organizations, fractions of the Caribbean diaspora still grapple with acceptance for the LGBTQ community.
Our Caribbean diaspora, when you see someone who cross-dresses, when we see someone dressed as a female, when we see a drag queen, all they think about is transgender. They don't see the person for who they are. And we need to learn that. We need to learn to see people for who they are and respect them for who they are. You know, oftentimes we don't even understand pronouns, where my pronoun is he, him, male figure. As Sundari is she, her. Right? As International Dancer Zaman, it's him or they. Right? And we need to start these conversations on how to properly address someone, how to properly identify someone. Right? And it's super important.
So now let's find out, is being Mohamed, International Dancer Zaman, and Sundari, the Indian goddess, overwhelming?
And yeah, it's overwhelming. It's extremely overwhelming to be Sundari, to be Zaman, and just be me. But it's encouraging. I know it's worthwhile. When I see change in our community, when I get that text message or that Instagram DM of someone saying, Zaman, we need more people like you. The work you're doing is so powerful. And I'm so thankful for those messages, because sometimes I go through days where I go to sleep and cry. And cry. Because I know we failed someone else today. Another one of our brothers and sisters died today. But we are still here. And then you get that message of, Zaman, you helped my daughter. You helped my son. You helped me understand how to be a mother, how to be a friend, or even how to even accept myself for who I am. And when I get those, the boost of energy, the boost of courage, that I know someone else is alive, just like me. And they will continue to do that work. And this work will never end. This work will continue as long as there's hope alive. As long as there's one LGBTQ individual alive, this work will continue. This change will happen.
So there are many boys and girls right now in our society who are struggling with self-acceptance, with they're in an identity crisis. You know, they're not sure what's happening to them, or you know how to describe what's these feelings that they're having. What would you say to those young people right now who are in this state of turmoil within themselves, within their own minds, and being in this state because you would have passed through that phase, and you know, being able to be now in our society, you're bold, you're confident, and I don't think there's anybody as authentic as you are. So I must commend you for everything that you've been doing over the years, for even through the arts, your dances, your performances, your appearances, even when you walk on the street, whether you're dressed as Sundari, the Indian goddess, or as Zaman, or as yourself, you know, you are out there. You are, you know, being in the public's eye. You're giving messages to say, you know, hey, I'm in this society too. I live here. I belong here.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to those young people right now who are in that state of, you know, of transitioning?
That's a very powerful question you're asking. And for anyone who is in a state of transitioning, in a state of self-accepting, finding yourself, identity crisis, not sure which road you want to go or take, trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Surround yourself with like-minded people. Surround yourself with support. But get in touch with you. Do some development in yourself. There are going to be life struggles that we're going to face throughout life, and we will continue facing them even after we come out. And I continuously face these challenges, right? But know that you're not alone. Know that you have the power in yourself to be anyone you want to be. You can be any person we want to be in this world. The only thing that's stopping us is us. Believe in who you are, and don't let anyone question you. Don't let anyone question your identity. Don't let anyone put a thought, a drop of ink in your ocean. Don't let anyone do that, because they will start to diminish your value. We have to understand our value in society and value life. And I'll tell you, for these individuals, reach out. You may be stuck. You may be in limbo. You may be questioning, do I want to wear a dress today? Do I want to wear heels? Do I want to put on makeup? Do I want to put on some baggy clothes? Do I want to change my hair? Do I want to feel love? Know that you deserve it all.
Building self-esteem and being confident in your own skin is only a fraction of the work being done by the Caribbean Equality Project, recognizing that there are various nuances that exist within a person, but expressing it like Mohamed has is rare. hence the need to bring greater awareness and representation to the underserved LGBTQ community and, importantly, to break stigma.
Oftentimes we go through life pleasing others. We go through life pleasing others to fit in. And if you can't fit in, you feel like you're not worthy enough. And this comes with relationship, with job, with community, with every aspect of life. But how about we fit in our own world? Fit in into your own life and create that opportunity. Oftentimes there's not opportunity for brown and black and immigrant folks or LGBTQ individuals in our communities because we're not at the table. We're left out. And if we're being left out, that sends a message to us and young folks that you're not worthy enough to be in this space. And that's the problem. From the inception of the Caribbean Equality Project, we've seen change. We've seen where community is now starting that conversation of equality, inclusion, where we are able and we are continuously fighting for a seat at the table. And when I say the seat at the table, in all aspects of things, in our grocery stores, with our with employees, giving them rights, opening worship house of worships for LGBTQ individual, accepting them, starting the conversation in these areas, whether it's the mosque, the temples, the church, the synagogues, starting these conversations and welcoming them. Starting allies with community partners. We've developed so many community partners that is now partnering, creating resources, creating avenues and spaces for these conversations and dialogues to take place. We need more of this. We need individuals to step up in the community to create this change. And we ourselves cannot do it alone. We rely on others, we rely on the support, we rely on funding. We rely on government funding to do this. Because imagine having to print flyers, print documents, having to be in the streets, having to renting a space, all of this take funding. All of it take funding. And many of these organizations in our community, from the Caribbean Equality Projects to South Queens Women's March to the Barati Foundation to there's so many others in our community that is underfunded. Everything they do is because of volunteering.
Here now is Mohamed's message for people in society.
Every day is a new day to create change. I don't know if it's you who's watching today. Today might be your day, tomorrow, next year, but the opportunity is there. Every day we wake up is a new opportunity to create change in your life, in my life, and inspire someone. Inspire another person that their life matters. Their life value, I value, you value. Each one of us have an opportunity to share our stories. And your stories is important. It's important for your story to be told. Not after we are gone, but today. Let it be your story to inspire someone. Let this story, let my story, Sundari's story, Zaman's story, and all those who have come before us, let their story inspire you, to uplift you, to believe in yourself, to see your value in this world, and be loved, not only by yourself, but every single person around you. When you love yourself, others will love you. When you respect yourself, others will respect you. And only then we can truly see our full potential. Our full potential can truly be seen when we value ourselves, when we find self-acceptance. Find self-acceptance. And that can come in many ways. In our health, spiritual life, finance, family values, mental health, sexuality, identity. When we find ourselves in all these areas, we will see our true potentials. And the world is our canvas. The world is your canvas. Create it, paint it, dance, create that magic. Create the world you want to see. Create the world you want to be in. And every day I wake up, there's a new opportunity for me to do that. And I'm so blessed to have that opportunity. I know there's a lot of young boys out there who are watching. There's a lot of young girls out there. There's a lot of parents who are confused. There's a lot of married men who are still confused. But understand, you are not alone. There is support. But until you are willing to open yourself for support, you will continuously be blind and you will not be able to accept yourself.
Mohamed also called on people in responsible positions such as politicians, elected officials, and religious leaders to take action.
We need to start holding people accountable. When we hear LGBTQ slurs in music, when we hear LGBTQ slurs or hate speech on the streets, or in friends' conversations, in our homes, we need to start standing up. That's where it starts. This is where change will start. We need to start holding our government officials, our elected officials, the people we put in office. We need to start holding businesses. We need to start holding community leaders, religious leaders, our pundits, our priests, our imams. These are all people we need to start holding them accountable for hate speech when we hear them. We need to start holding these individuals accountable. And when we do this, we will see change. But also hold yourself accountable. When we don't hold ourselves accountable and we don't stand up, we are now part of the problem. And today we get to change that. And if we get to change that today, our future will be brighter.
And this persistence, drive, and passion for the art form is only the tip of the iceberg, as you would have noticed. Throughout this past hour, we've heard Mohamed's most prominent message, which is knowing what defines you will ultimately bring you closer to being your most powerful.
It's almost showtime, but before I go on stage, I want to take this time to acknowledge this historic event that's about to go on. You know, it has been a long awaited for the Caribbean nightclub in Queens and Caribbean nightlife in Queens to acknowledge our LGBT community. And tonight, I, Sundari the Indian goddess, have the honor and privilege to perform.
It's the struggles that I've gone through. It's the success, knowing that there are others like me out there. Knowing that there's a young child watching that potentially, possibly can be a fantastic makeup artist, a fantastic dancer, a choreographer, could be the next president, could lead a movement that will change the world that we have never seen before. And if we can continue to do that, if I can continue to do that through dance, and whether it's interpretations of dance, telling a story, or just bringing joy to someone's face, I know there's a legacy being created behind it. And for me, I really feel that it's every single time I go on stage, every single time I get dressed up, whether I'm putting on huge galihars or fabulous costumes, I know there's an impact that is being made in every single performance, and I go 110%. It doesn't matter to me whether I'm dancing for 5 people or 10,000. I will always go above and beyond because I always believe I never know who's in the audience. I never know who's in the audience. And I never know if that person will be impacted and they may call on me one day. So when you treat people with respect and dignity and you go above and beyond, or at least do your 100%, the world and Mother Nature will bless you tremendously. Tremendously. So my fellow artists, you're watching, go above and beyond. Be you. Your limits are the sky. Your limits are there is no limit to what you can do. As long as you believe in yourself. Believe in the power that you hold and trust in it. But know who you are.
कहाँ चलिए पर है तो कुछ वहाँ